Hello, everyone. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of an introduction to Illustrator, and we're going to use this handout here, Intro to Illustrator Practice, as sort of our guidelines for how we're going to start using the program. So on this handout, it goes over some learning targets, and I'm going to show you quickly where some of these areas are in Illustrator's workspace, and then I'm going to introduce you to a few of the tools that you will use a lot in this program. So first off, to get to Illustrator, you're going to go to your Startup menu, and the icon looks just like this. Adobe Illustrator 2020. And you're going to launch the program, and the window will come up, and you're going to click on Create New, just like in Photoshop. You're going to do Print, letter size, and you're going to name it your name, braid, and Illustrator practice. I'm going to change it from points to pixels for now because it'll just be easier to see. And I'm going to keep my orientation, portrait, and only one artboard. And we'll talk about what that is in just a minute. I'm going to leave everything else the same, and I'm going to click on Create. All right, so here it is. This is Illustrator. So when you come into Illustrator, there are some similarities to Photoshop. One, you'll notice here's your workspace, right? This is where your artboard is. It is the paper that you will draw on. You have over here on the left-hand side, you have your toolbox. Up on the top, you have your drop-down menu, right? File, open, save, print, and such. And you have your menu up here that changes depending on your tool. Over on this left-hand side, you will see, just like in Photoshop, you have some panels that allow you to sort of specifically make changes to things. I have my properties, which is when I make something in here, my properties panel come up and I can make changes to things that I make. My layers panel is right here, so I can make multiple layers. And this is essentially the workspace. It's just going to be a little bit different than over in Photoshop. Now, let's take a look at some tools, right? We're going to look at the paintbrush, the pencil tool, the shape tool, pen, and gradient tool. And so, in my toolbox over here, I have let's start with the paintbrush tool. So my paintbrush tool is here, and it works a little bit different than in Photoshop. This is vectors, and working in vectors, we're actually making lines, and we're making something called paths. You're never going to color something in. What you're going to do instead is you can make a shape, select the shape, and then you can fill it. So over here, my properties, I can change the fill to be different colors. I can change the stroke, right, is that border, to be a different color. I could change it to be a different size, right? And it also allows me to sort of align things differently. I can change my brush, so, right? So it allows you to do a lot of customizing of your shapes. So that's the brush tool. It allows you to, again, make some shapes, and then you can go in and you can fill those shapes. But you're not going in and coloring in your shapes. Another important tool is these two on the top. There's the selection tool, which selects a whole entire shape, right? All of the shape, allows me to move it. This is the direct select tool. And this tool allows me to click on an anchor point, one of these little blue boxes, and I can change the shape. So the selection tool allows me to move the whole thing, change the whole size, right? Like transform. And the direct select tool allows me to change individual points on this path to customize shapes. So that's the paintbrush tool. There's also the pencil tool, which is similar. Right? You come to your properties or up here on your options, and as long as the blue line is selected, you can come in and you can change the colors. So I'm going to select it, right? So here it is. Got a blue bounding box. Change colors. Okay. The other one is the pen tool, which is a really cool, powerful tool. And allows you to make your anchor points. It draws the line. I'm going to make a click and make another anchor point, and then I'm going to pull. And it allows me to get these handles so I can make any kind of curve that I want. And I can keep going with the curve to make shapes. I can also go back, right? Use the direct select tool to move the whole thing. The direct selection tool. Click and pull. You want to click first to select it, and then click and move. And you can also move these handles. So that's the paintbrush, that's the pencil tool, and remember, you're drawing paths that you then fill with colors. You're not painting in color. The pen tool, which is a really awesome tool to use, especially I use it with tracing things. The other tool that you will use a lot is the shapes tool. So I can just make a rectangle. I can come to my properties and change the colors. The shapes tool allows you to make all different kinds of shapes. And last but not least, I can use the gradient tool with a shape selected. And add a gradient to my object. So I can go up here to my options bar and apply a gradient. And I can do different types of gradients. Right? But those are all things that you can play around with and you're transformed with clicking. So again, just to recap, these tools up here, this is your selection tool, moves the whole shape. The direct select tool allows you to click on a path and a little box on that path and move it and change it. So it's directly changing a point. There's the pencil tool, which allows you to draw your shape. And the paintbrush tool. I can change my brushes just like in Photoshop. I can select my shape. The pen tool, which allows you to put down individual anchor points. And then the gradient tool, which allows me to use my options bar to fill, and I can change my colors by double clicking on the tools. So take a little bit of time and use these 5 tools and make some designs, make some things, get comfortable with the Illustrator space. When you're done, you're going to go to File, Save As, and save to your digital arts folder. Make a new folder called Illustrator. And then I already have one named that, so I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to leave it as the basic defaults. And now, because I want to send it as a JPEG, I actually need to export it because it doesn't make it into a JPEG, the save as. So if I do export and export as, this allows me to now change it from a AI, which is the Illustrator file, to a JPEG. And then click on export. And I'm going to leave the quality as maximum, the 10. Baseline is fine. I'm going to save my resolution as high, right? So it's good for printing if I choose to print it. And that's it. So CMYK, maximum, high for 300 pixels per inch. And then I can go ahead and click on OK. And then make sure to attach to the Google Classroom assignment both the JPEG file. Please let me know if you have any questions.